All right, so this video is going to build on the last video that we did together. In this video, we're going to just practice describing different transformations. So looking at what's happening to get from the pre-image to the image, and then describing that using the ordered pairs. So for example, in this first one, these are the points of the pre-image, the original. This is what those points turn into, the input and the output. We need to figure out what's happening to this to get here. So we're going to start with this ordered pair of x, y. And then we need to figure out what's happening to the x and what's happening to the y. So if you look at each of these pairs, to get from 3 to 5, you have to add 2. To get from the 1 to the 3, you would add 2. To get from -3 to -1, you would add 2. And from 4 to 6, you add 2. So what's happening to the x-coordinate is that you're adding 2. Then, to figure out what's happening to the y-coordinate, we look at each of the y's to see how you're getting from the original to the image. So 1 to -3, you would have to subtract 4. 4 to 0 is subtracting 4. 2, and then subtract 4, you get -2. 3, subtract 4, you get -1. So that is happening there. Now notice that if you were to plot each of these points over here, you're going to see a transformation that moves this original shape that's made of these 2 to the right and 4 down. So this first point is 5, -3. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, down 3, and it's going to show up down there. 1, 4 turns into 3, 0, so 1, 2, 3, and then 0. -1, -2 is going to be -1, -2. And 6, -1 is going to be right there. And if you notice, it took this shape and it moved everything over 2 and it moved everything down 4 because that's what this said was going to happen. So when you're adding and subtracting things from each coordinate, really what you're getting is a translation. Like that. Now, let's look at this one. Here's something a little bit different happening. In this one, well, actually, let's go back up here real quick, and we'll label this as a translation. Now let's look at this one. So in this one, to get from here to here, if you notice, 4, 2, and then this one is 2, 4. This one's 3, 6, and then this one is 6, 3. Each one of these is just flipped. It's flip-flopped. And when we think of flips, we think of reflections. So let's first write this so we can see how that's going to play out on the graph over here. So xy turns into, and then you just swap them. Becomes yx. So if we were to plot each of these new points, we would get 2, 4. We would get 6, 3. We would get 1, 5. We would get 3, -2. Now that might just look like kind of a jumbled mess, but actually what's happening is it's reflecting all of the points over this diagonal line right through there, the line y equals x. So for example, that goes there, that goes to that one, and that one. So when you flip them like this, it's a reflection over this line right here, the line y equals x. So this is a reflection. Now let's look down here at another thing that could possibly happen. here, we start with our original, xy. And if you notice, to get the x, nothing happens. 2 stays a 2, 4 stays a 4, -3 stays a -3, 1 stays a 1. So the x, nothing is happening. For the y coordinate, 3 becomes -3. -2 becomes a +2. 4 becomes a -4, and -1 becomes a +1. So what's happening with the y coordinate is they are all opposites. So the way that we represent that is we just put a negative before the y, and that really means opposite of y. Now, if we were going to plot these, you can see what happens there. This point is at 2, -3. This point is at 4, 2. -3, -4, and 1, 1. What's happened is that everything has been reflected over the x-axis. So that one goes there, that one goes there, that one came down there, and that one went up there. So by leaving the x-coordinate the same and just taking the opposite of the y-coordinate, really what's happened is you've just reflected each point over this x-axis. So basically, depending on what the transformation is, if you're adding or subtracting, if you're switching or flipping, if you're flipping it from positive to a negative, different of our rigid transformations occur, either translations, reflections, or eventually we'll talk about what happens with the rotation. So there you have it. I hope this video was helpful, and go ahead and try the practice that goes with it. It's in Google Classroom. There's a Google form for video number 2. See how you do, and remember, you can take it as many times as you need to in order to make sure that you feel good about it. Thanks so much.